The Story of Aeneas. As the story opens, Aeneas and the Trojans have already been traveling 7 years since leaving Troy. Aeneas has suffered untold hardships brought upon him by spiteful goddess Juno because Venus, his mother, had beaten her in a beauty contest and she wished for revenge. Book 1. The Trojans are at sea. Their ships are being buffeted about by a terrific storm that Juno has caused. Hearing the commotion, old Neptune raises his hoary head above the waves to see who has dared stir up the sea without his permission. To put the guilty Juno in her place, he calms the storm. This makes it possible for poor Aeneas and his exhausted followers to reach the nearby shore of Africa. There they land not far from the site of the new city called Carthage, which they find is being built by Dido, a beautiful Phoenician queen. Dido, however, is a pet of Juno. Therefore, Venus, looking down from on high, suspects that Juno is up to more mischief. Seeking out Jupiter, Lord of the heavens, Venus asks him why and for how long he will allow her dear son Aeneas to be persecuted. Jupiter soothes Venus by telling her of the wonderful future in store for Aeneas as founder of the Roman race and forefather of the illustrious tribe of Julius. Jupiter then sends Mercury flying down to Carthage to make sure that Dido will receive the Trojans with hospitality. Aeneas has been welcomed and feasted by the beautiful Dido and is being dragged to tell her the story of his wanderings as the first book ends. Book 2. Aeneas tells the story after the Greeks have besieged our city unsuccessfully for many years. Aeneas is saying the goddess Athena helped them build a tremendous wooden horse which they left standing outside the city gates. Then apparently they sailed for home. We Trojans, suspicious at first, were finally tricked into dragging the horse inside the city walls, only to find that it was filled with Greek soldiers who opened the gates to those outside. Though we fought desperately to save it, our ancient city fell. As I stood aghast, Venus, my mother, appeared to me, told me to take my family and flee. At first, Anchises, my aged father, refused to leave, but suddenly there came omens from heaven. The soft tuft of hair on my small son's head was seemed to glow with light, and a star shot through the sky, marking a path for us to follow. Then my old father picked up the household gods and the sacred hearth fire and was ready to leave. I spread a lion skin across my shoulders, and carrying my father upon it, holding my small son by the hand, escaped from the burning city. Somewhere on the way, my dear wife, who was following, became separated from us and lost. I went back alone to search for her, but met only her ghost, and knew that I must go on without her. Near Mount Etna, I was joined by these, my companions, who were determined to go with me wherever I shall go. With tears, I left the shore where Troy once stood. In exile, I launched forth into the deep with my associates, my son, my household gods, and the great gods of my country. Book 3. Dido is still listening. Aeneas tells her how they landed at one place after another, but were never allowed to settle. Always he had been driven on by dreams, prophets, and oracles to fulfill his destiny. On the island of Sicily, his old father, Anchises, had died. This was my finishing disaster, says Aeneas. This is the end of a long, tedious journey. Parting hence, a god directed me to your coast. Book 4. The Trojans are still at Dido's court. Dido has fallen deeply in love with Aeneas, and this is their love story, manipulated, interfered with, watched over by the gods and goddesses. It ends with Aeneas obeying the command of Jupiter, deserts the broken-hearted Dido, and sails away again, hoping this time to reach Italy to fulfill his destiny. Book 5. The Trojans are at sea. Looking back, Aeneas sees the smoke rising and the flames above the walls of Carthage, and suspects the truth, that in her grief and despair Dido has taken her own life. Just out of sight of the land, a storm arises and drives the Trojan ships back to Sicily. And there, where his old father Achius has died the year before Aeneas, as a devoted son celebrates the anniversary with appropriate funeral games. Then again he sets sail for Italy. Book 6. Aeneas visits the land of the dead. Landing in Italy at last, Aeneas finds himself not far from Cumae, a city of Greek colonists, and near the mouth of a cave, where Sibyl, the princess, delivers the mysterious oracles of Apollo. Approaching here, Aeneas begs her to take him to visit his father in the land of the dead. Easy is the path that leads down to hell, says she, but none may ever return from there who has not first found and plucked the golden bough. Searching for it in the forest, Aeneas is guided by 2 white doves sent by Venus to a tree on which there is a bough that looks exactly like mistletoe. Returning with it, he follows the priestess to the mouth of the hideous black cave. After sacrificing black bulls to Pluto, god of the underworld, they enter the night black opening. Passing by grief, fear, disease, war, and all those spectacles that lie between life and death, they finally reach the river Styx. There, Charon, the grim boatman, is persuaded by sight of the golden bow to ferry them across the water, pacifying Siberius, the hideous 3-headed watchdog on the other side. Aeneas and the Sibyl pass through the well-guarded gate and along a pathway until it divides. To the left, it leads down to a pit, twice as deep as heaven is high, where the wicked are being tortured and punished for their sins. To the right, it leads into the green fields of the blessed, and there Aeneas finds his father. There, too, the old man points out to his son the souls of future Roman heroes waiting to be born. Romulus is there, and all the clan who are to take their name from Julius, son of Aeneas. Julius Caesar, the god, is there. Augustus Caesar, king of a new golden age, and at last of all their youth of promise, who was to die so young, that pitiful youth, Marcellus. As Virgil read those last lines, Octavia fainted. Later, in appreciation of the lasting honor he had paid her beloved son, she gave the poet a handsome reward. Augustus was deeply moved and gratified by the entire poem. He was sure that when the next 6 books had rounded out the story, all that he had hoped for would be accomplished. Virgil was not satisfied. Though he was to work on it for 11 years consecutively and devotedly and finish the 12 books, its author was never to be satisfied with the Aeneid. Perhaps it was because he was a lover of truth and he was forced himself to preach of old gods in whom he no longer believed.